Hi, it's Nikki here from Happy Hormones for Life, and today I've got the lovely Katie Taylor. We're actually catching up because it's been a while since we spoke. Welcome, Katie.
Hi, Nikki. Thanks. Yeah, it's been ages.
It really has. Do you know what? I think it was about 5 or 6 years ago that I came to your house for a retreat, and I think it might have been your first one that you ran because we lived quite close to each other. And at the time, I think I was probably one of the few people talking about hormones and menopause around then. So tell me what prompted you to actually set that up in the first place?
Well, I mean, it was funny. I was working at the time at a charity. It was actually a mental health charity, ironically, and I didn't feel great. And I remember seeing a flyer that was put on my desk, and it said something like, are you a woman over 40? And have you put on weight? And are you very teary? And it was like, yeah, that's me. And it was like, come and speak to this woman. And it was Nikki Williams. And I was like, oh my God, that's just me. Maybe I'm not going crazy. And I remember thinking, right, I must ring you. But the reason it sort of happened was I was going at the age of 43. So I'm 52 now. So it's almost 9 years ago. I had 4 years of horrible symptoms. I was very teary. I couldn't concentrate at work. I was forgetting words. I put on weight. I had anxiety and heart palpitations. I mean, there was a huge list of things like aching joints. The list goes on. And every time I went to my doctor or even to see a specialist, they kept saying they thought I was suffering from depression and perhaps I should work less. And because I work for a mental health charity, they were very good, actually. And they said, look, maybe try going part-time and take as much time as you need. And it was very frustrating because I was embarrassed because I was normally a very capable woman and I had 4 kids and I loved my job. But I was embarrassed because after a couple of weeks of taking time off work, there was a sort of, are you coming back? When are you coming back? And I kept trying to go back. And I just wasn't functioning at all well. Now, I was sent to heart specialist. I was even sent to, suggested I saw a dementia specialist because I was forgetting words. And eventually I actually went crying to my dad, who's a breast cancer professor, and just said, I don't know what's wrong with me. I think I'm going mad. This isn't me. And so to cut a very long story short, he sent me to see a gynecologist who he worked with, and she specialized in menopause. In fact, she writes the nice guidelines for menopause care. And within half an hour of me telling her my symptoms, she said, well, this is classic perimenopause. Now, for me, I'd never heard of that word, and it was a bit of a light bulb moment. It was, oh my God, I'm not going mad. All these symptoms are happening for a reason. She'd explained that my estrogen levels were on the floor, and it was a bit like a sort of car with no petrol. I just was not, operating from all cylinders because I was basically empty. Yeah. So I actually, although I felt relief, and to be honest, she put me on HRT, which was the right treatment for me, and I did feel so much better within about a month. I also felt very angry. And so I turned to Facebook, and there was nobody at all talking about hormones and menopause or perimenopause on Facebook. So I set up a group. And I realized very quickly, I mean, that night I had over 1,000 member requests. And I realized very quickly I was not alone. And this was not an isolated case. And actually, there were thousands of women like me suffering like I was. So to get to your point, the reason I decided to do that retreat was after the Facebook group had been going for a year. I just thought, you know what, I want to celebrate this sort of first birthday of the Facebook group and bring together professionals like yourself who can talk and explain what's going on in a very sort of safe and warm and comfortable surroundings.
It was, your story is so similar to mine. It's just ringing all the same bells. The doctor putting on antidepressants, you turning to your dad, exactly what I did, hearing the word perimenopause for the first time. We were both at a similar age as well. So it really resonated with me, and I'm sure lots of other women in their early 40s too. Yeah. in that time, Katie, you have, in the time since that very first retreat, you've built a huge tribe of women now in the Latte Lounge that you run. Why do you think it's been so successful?
So my aim of the Latte Lounge is to support and then inform and then signpost, so that they're not left like I was, like you were, feeling rubbish. I don't want women to waste time. I don't want them to waste money. So that was the purpose. And along the way, I've just met the most amazing, I call them menopause warriors, because there's just so many women now who are all banging the same drum, and we're not putting up with it anymore, basically. And we shouldn't have to.
And what a change has happened since when we first did that retreat, these years. Honestly, I look around now and think, oh my goodness, if I had all that information available to me, I mean, things would have changed. Things would have been different. I would have understood what was going on, because I think it's that lack of education, isn't it? That the lack of knowing what's happening is the worst thing, because then we don't know how to deal with it when we don't know what's going on. Yeah. Do you find as well, because there's so much information out there, it can be a little bit overwhelming? I'm sure you deal with that in your group.
Yeah, look, it absolutely can be. And one of the women I met through my Facebook group was a lovely lady who I'm sure a lot of people have heard of, called Diane Danzybrink. And Diane set up the Make Menopause Matter campaign and petition. And the reason I've been a real supporter of it is because her campaign aims are exactly, sort of following my own journey and thousands of women's journeys. So we know what's going wrong is the gatekeepers to our health are GPs and healthcare professionals, and they haven't had the right, there's no mandatory menopause sort of module at medical school. So it's covered very loosely and very quickly. So there's a whole generation of doctors that haven't learned about it enough in depth. And then you've got this whole Women's Health Initiative flawed report, which frightened GPs and women off taking hormone replacement therapy because it linked it to breast cancer. And that study has now been, discredited. And so Diane's campaign aim is to get all, HCPs mandatory menopause training. We're also not taught it at school. So we're taught about getting pregnant or not getting pregnant and giving birth. And then there's this sort of radio silence, this sort of almost like 10 years gap, 40 to 50, where nothing is spoken about. And then you sort of know vaguely about menopause is sort of some grey-haired old lady having a hot flush sitting in a chair when you're in your mid-50s. And that doesn't resonate with us. And nobody taught us at school about this perimenopause, this sort of section where, our hormones are plummeting and we might feel rubbish. I mean, not everyone does. Some women sail through it and some don't. And so that was her sort of second campaign aim, is to get it on the secondary school curriculum, which it now is in England, which is amazing. And then the last one is workplace support. So having workplace policies or education training so that women, like me, don't have to leave their jobs because their employer doesn't understand, or I was too embarrassed to talk about it, or didn't even know about it. So I think what's happened in this part, since you and I have spoken is, first of all, we've been up to Westminster a lot campaigning together. Diane's unbelievable force for nature. And then there's a lot of celebrities who are now talking about it. You've got the likes of Meg Matthews and the Davina McCall program. And so I think Instagram and Facebook and the TV programs, everyone's talking about it now, which is amazing. And MPs are now, taking note. And so change is happening slowly, but it's happening. And I think it's fantastic because I love Diane's catchphrase. She has a catchphrase, we must be the generation, we must be the generation to make menopause matter. And I think we will be. And I don't think our daughters and future generations will suffer. They'll just get the right treatment on day one, and they'll be educated in anyway, and they'll know what to expect, and they'll be hopefully fine.
I really hope that's the case as well. And we are the last generation that suffers unnecessarily. And what about when you go to your GP and you've got your symptom checker and everything? What can you do if your GP doesn't know much about this and is not really giving you the support you need?
Yeah, well, look, GPs are amazing and they only have 10-minute appointments. So I always say, ring up before you go if you can. I know it's difficult in COVID times. Ask if you can have a double appointment, or also ask if there's a GP who has a special interest in menopause or women's health. And actually, unfortunately for now, and things will change, but it will take time, you need to sort of do a little bit of your own research. So perhaps read and print off the NICE guidelines, which say actually first line treatment is not antidepressants. It is HRT. Read about HRT as well so that you sort of understand what it is. Obviously, there are lots of other lifestyle changes that you should be looking at, but and then take a partner, because you get overwhelmed when people are telling you things, and then go and see your GP and say, look, I think I'm suffering from possibly perimenopause. I've filled out this symptom checklist. I've read about the NICE guidelines. Can we just discuss what my options are? Now, if you don't get anywhere and they're still saying antidepressants or just go away, I was told just go away and lose weight, which was pretty awful.
Wow.
Then you can go and ask to see a menopause specialist. And there aren't that many. There's about 150 in the UK NHS ones. And there are lots of private menopause specialists now. And go and have an informed joint discussion with someone who actually knows about hormone, symptoms.
And what can they get on the Latte Lounge? What do you offer there?
Well, look, we offer, as I said, hand-holding, support, information, and signposting. We will look after you. We will empathise. We've all been there in some way or form. So, come and have a chat, whether it's on Instagram or Facebook. Read our website for information. Email me if you want signposting. And we are actually launching in the new year a private membership. And the reason I'm doing that is because I need to help women in a lot more detail. And so for the last 6 years, I've just, probably like you, I'm getting emails, thousands and thousands at midnight, 11 at night, crying. Some women are suicidal. And I always feel terrible that I can't see through their journey and help them. So with this private membership, they'll have a smaller private Facebook group. We'll be having masterclasses with them, hopefully with the lovely Nikki Williams as well, so that we can actually make sure that they get better, that they don't have to keep dipping in and out for years and years and still not get anywhere.
Yeah. So that launches when? In January?
Hopefully the doors are opening January the 10th, and and we'll obviously let people know about it on the website. But yeah.
Good luck with that, Katie. I'm sure it's going to be amazing. Thank you so much for speaking with me, and I'll see you soon. Hopefully, for not so many years away.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me, Nikki.